Hey guys, Scarlet Darkwood here, and we are going to continue with crafting a story. This is lesson 4. If you watch my other videos, lessons 1 through 3, I give you the preliminaries on starting a novel or a short story or whatever story you're wanting to write. In the fiction genre, I don't do memoirs or nonfiction at this point. But at any rate, I'm going to continue with lesson 4. And this is when you are actually ready to start typing your words into the computer, writing it down on paper, however you want to do this. This is assuming you've done all your research and you're ready to get going. The first thing any publisher or any fellow author or even a reader will tell you is when they open that book, you have to start grabbing their attention right out of the gate. They are not going to stick with you if you go into long, drawn-out prose, going on and on and on and on about something that at that point in time just doesn't matter to them. They have to care about your book and about your characters, about what's going on. And sometimes you can do this through a writing style that may attract them. You are probably going to maybe start in an action or start somewhere that piques their interest. And so I'm going to refer a little bit to a book called Hooked by Les Edgerton, and you can get that on Amazon. I'll put a link to it. I'm just going to start out by saying it's a lot easier said than done, but I'm going to go into a few of his points, and yes, I'm going to look at my notes so that I can make sure that I cover everything. When you start a story, Les says you need to include these first 4 things right out of the gate as soon as possible. And that is the inciting incident, the story-worthy problem, the initial surface problem, the setup, and those are your first 4. Your other ones that come later are backstory, a stellar opening sentence, language, character, setting, and foreshadowing. The first 4 are the most important, and that's the inciting incident, the story-worthy problem, the initial surface problem, and the setup. So when a reader is reading your story for the first time and trying to get into what you're wanting to share with them, the characters, their situation, you want to write the opening kind of like a headline. If you were reading the first sentence as a headline, what would you write? What would you say that would grab their attention right out of the gate? As they start to read, what more is going to pique their interest? What's going on with the character? What are they doing? What situation are they in? What dilemma, what problem do they find themselves in? And the more you work around that, bringing in the rest of the elements, you have a better chance of grabbing your reader. A lot of publishers won't even take your book if they read the first 2 or 3 sentences or even the first paragraph, and if it doesn't grab them, they're tossing your book out. They're not going to call you back. They're not going to give you an acceptance letter. A reader is just going to pass your book on by and never read you again, probably. So while this sounds pretty simple to include these elements, it's actually a lot harder than you think. It's easier said than done, and I find that most advice is usually understandable in theory. It's much harder to execute, and that's just the way it is. And you may not score every time. You should strive to score every time. If someone held a gun to your head and you have got to have your opening paragraph grab the reader, how would you write this to ensure that you grab the reader? And this is very tricky because here's the interesting thing that a lot of readers don't understand, though that's not their fault and that's not their job. Your job is to try to hook them, to entertain them. Authors have their story and they kind of have a way that they want it to start. They have a way they want to present the information. We just have our way or want to do it our way of presenting the story and then taking the reader along for a journey. I get it. I'm that way too. But I also try to hook the reader out of the gate. And I'm going to be honest with you, some of my stories lend itself better to that than others. I hate to admit it, but I'm not going to lie. And like with everything, some readers are going to like what you do and some don't. But as an author, it's always helpful to try to keep these points in mind as you start your book. Because if you lose them, you're kind of sunk, and it's going to be slower to get the right kind of reader who will kind of go along with you. Some readers are a little more forgiving. They'll go, 5-10 pages. Some may go a chapter. And if you just can't get them interested, they're going to dump you. So I would work on doing these types of things to get your book ready to grab people. Like I say, there are some stories where I don't think I've done that as well as others. Some stories I've done much better just because of the type of story it is. Death by Design, which is a hard-boiled crime story that I wrote, is more likely to grab you out of the gate because you have Angelina Templeton, the main character, right in the middle of something horrific. And my brother-in-law read the story and said, oh yeah, he said it held my interest. I wanted to know what was going on. Some of my other stories may be a little bit slower. Words We Never Speak is, a lot of people like that book and I love it too, but it's a little bit slower. I had to rewrite the first paragraph the way it is now to try to make it a little bit more intriguing, because when I very, very first wrote it, it was written differently, and it was just, one publisher told me, he said, he said, your writing's great. He said, it's better than most manuscripts we receive. But he said, unfortunately, it's not hooking me. He said, I even tried all the chapters. He said, I gave it to somebody else to see if maybe it was the mood I was in. So I failed at that one. So when the book got accepted by another publisher, I rewrote the introduction. I wrote the beginning of the story to try to do a little bit better job than that, or than what I did the first time around. But every time I write a story, I try to make it grab the reader, and sometimes I question myself. As an author, you're going to always question yourself. It may grab you, but you don't know if it's going to grab somebody else. Let somebody else look at it. Ask a friend. One of my good friends who reads my work, and she tells me things as a reader that she always wants to know what's going to happen. She said, if you can leave me wanting to know what's going to happen, I'll keep reading. And by the way, she loved Words We Never Speak. She said, I took it to bed with me. I read it late every night, and my husband was like, okay, are you going to bed now, or are you going to stay up reading? So it got her. It hooked her. She wanted to find out more. Death by Design hooked my brother-in-law. He wanted to find out more. The Golden Mark. Some people may find that a very slow book. Others really love it. So, as an author, I'm just trying to be honest with you and tell you that some of my experiences with writing, trying to write that hook, and some of the things I have found with my own work. I don't want to lie to you. But, check out what I've written, see what you think, and look at other books you've written. What enticed you as a reader? As an author, think about ways you can make that opening more of a headliner, something that's going to grab somebody out of the gate. Keep working with it, let people look at it, and you just keep developing that. And every story is going to be different. It's a little tricky to write that opening hook. People have trouble with it. Some people make a decision to start right in the middle of an action. It just depends on the story. But never lose sight of the fact that you need to try to grab the reader's attention, and that sometimes you'll do it, sometimes you won't. So that's really the best advice I can give you. And I hope you've enjoyed this video. Happy writing and happy reading.